Chapter 146, Too Smart. The entire Team Tiny Herb was low on morale. In the news conference after the match, Captain Wang Jiexi revealed to the media that Team Tiny Herb was currently undergoing a special secret training, which affected their team's condition. But with Tiny Herb's current dominant position, Wang Jiexi believed that this loss was completely worth it. Tiny Herb only had one goal: champions. Their record in the regular matches didn't mean much to them. This statement wasn't enough for the public, especially the part about the special secret training. No one knew whether that was the truth or a lie. And their record in the regular matches wasn't as insignificant as Wang Jiexi had said. Their spot in the playoffs was already set, so they didn't need worry about it. But their position on the standings affected their prices for the alliance's broadcasts and bonuses from their sponsors. The higher a team was on the standings, the higher the bonuses they earned. As for the playoffs, a playoff team naturally received extra revenue from broadcast rights in the playoffs. Every time the team advanced, they would gain another bonus. The connection between a team's standings and their benefits was obvious. In addition, a more outstanding record carried with it the obvious benefits to a team's reputation, publicity, and fans, these types of intangible benefits. However, all in all, Wang Jiexi's statement was well spoken. The match was just a single page in the book and nothing more. Earlier, after Excellent Era made an unfathomable mistake that cost them the match, the newly appointed team captain Sun Xiang would only say things like he didn't know or he wasn't sure to the news conference, brushing away questions as if they were like annoying flies. The difference between his handling of the situation was far from the experienced Wang Jiexi. 2 days after the matches ended, Team Tiny Herb once again gathered together in Glory's 10th server and called for Lord Grimm to come to the arena. Following the principle that customers were above all else, Yi Shu called for Tang Ru to come over. In the past few days, Tang Ru had gone to the arena to try a few battles. But how could these normal players be her opponents? They were defeated dully and tastelessly. She would occasionally train with Yi Shu for a few rounds, making Tang Ru feel as if her efforts in the past few days had been pointless. Her fights with Yi Shu made her feel like she hadn't made any progress. It was the same as when she first fought him. She lost in every way she could imagine. In addition, she fought with Steamed Bun Invasion several times. Tang Ru's chances of winning were a bit better. Steamed Bun Invasion really was a player that fluctuated. He would sometimes completely crush Tang Ru, but would also sometimes get completely crushed. Using Yi Shu's words, Steamed Bun Invasion was a player that didn't care about theory or strategy and completely relied on his intuition. He would sometimes be like a blind cat trying to catch a dead mouse and somehow win. But he would also sometimes be unable to catch the dead mouse. And in that scenario, he became a low-leveled failure and lost extremely miserably. Yi Shu had originally wanted Tiny Herb to also train with Steamed Bun Invasion, but who would have thought that Steamed Bun Invasion wouldn't come today? He had no choice but to have just him and Tang Ru come. After several busy days, Plantago Seed finally gathered a few of the materials Tiny Herb wanted. The rules were still the same as before. They had to fight with Tang Ru first, which ended quickly. They then looked for Yi Shu, who clearly felt that the difficulty had increased. In these past few days, these guys clearly hadn't been idling around. They had already figured out a few new strategies created specially against him. In addition, their accounts had been leveled and were now level 30. With more skills and more tactical options, the advantages of an unspecialized character slowly declined as their levels increased. In other words, unspecialized characters were already completed at level 20. Besides higher stats and stronger skills, the way they fought wouldn't change too much with more levels. On the other hand, other classes would have new skills they could learn, so the way they fought became more and more rich. Even though the amount of skills they could learn in the end still couldn't be compared to unspecialized characters, the gap became less obvious. This situation had already been confirmed by unspecialized character during their era. At that time, they confirmed that as the level cap continued to increase, unspecialized characters would eventually become trash. They didn't have to wait long for the end of that era. Once the level 50 awakening came out, unspecialized characters directly became trash. The subject of unspecialized characters completely faded away after that. Some of the research that was being conducted on them were also thrown out. Yi Shu, who picked up this forgotten class, had to do some proper tests too. He had confidence in the class at the level 50 stage of the game. But afterwards, at level 60 and 70, he could only rely on his own experiences later to test the class. All in all, he needed to test it. Many of the theories Yi Shu had come up with needed to be tried when the time came. The characters of the pro players in front of him had reached a new stage. Everyone had also studied and learned from their past defeats, so Yi Shu needed to be more focused while facing them. This time, there would be a few small twists and turns in every match. Team Tiny Herb finally stopped getting completely crushed. Everyone's fighting spirit was extremely high and all showed their desire to take down their opponent. However, even with all of their research, Team Tiny Herb still lost every match. The later rounds seemed to be more hopeful for them, but it wasn't something they could feel happy about. Don't forget that they were taking turns fighting. 10 players fought 10 consecutive rounds and Yi Shu could no longer be as relaxed as before. Consecutive rounds would obviously take a toll on his spirit and strength. Actually, when Wang Jiexi had told everyone to form 2-player groups to train, he was taking this point into account. He was worried that Yi Shu's condition would decline and affect their training. In the first 2 days, they weren't familiar with unspecialized characters, so they lost tragically and couldn't see that Yi Shu's condition declined with each round. But now that they had a specific plan going in, this sort of situation really did appear, making the training for the later team members not as optimal. Wang Jiexi only watched Yi Shu's matches and never went up. But he did run over to fight with Tang Ru for a few rounds. If someone entered the room without knowing the situation, they would definitely think that he was trying to seduce her. Miss Tang, you've improved quite a lot over the week. Wang Jiexi wasn't flattering her. Tang Ru had talent and with someone guiding her, it'd be strange if she didn't improve. But, to have God Yi Chu coaching her one-on-one, that really was way too lucky. Thank you. Tang Ru had improved and was developing similarly to how Team Tiny Herb was doing against Yi Shu. She was losing, but making things more difficult for the opponent. But against Wang Jiexi, Tang Ru still felt powerless. She understood that this person was more skilled than even those experts by a thread, just like Yi Shu. He was an existence that she couldn't touch for now. Miss Tang, have you considered the topic I raised last time? Wang Jiexi asked after a few rounds. Oh, I don't think I'll be changing my mind right now, Tang Ru said. Really? Well, then I'll still be hoping that you will, Wang Jiexi said. If you're looking for pro players, why don't you guys ask Lord Grimm? Tang Ru suddenly asked curiously. Yi Shu's skill level was too obvious. If the other side wanted to invite someone, why wouldn't they want a talent that was already there? Him. He's a retired pro player. According to the rules, he'll need at least a year in order to join again, Wang Jiexi said. Oh, so it's like that. I really don't know anything about the pro scene, Tang Ru said. And, he's already fairly old. If he came back, then he'd only be able to play for a year or two more at most. But for you, little Tang, you're still young, right? Your future is limitless, Wang Jiexi said. Oh, how do you know my age? Tang Ru said. I could roughly tell from the way you play. Your energy, drive, and attitude. With just one look, I can tell that you're at the golden age for a pro player. You should probably be around 20 years old. I hope I didn't guess wrong, Wang Jiexi said. Whoa, you guessed very accurately, Tang Ru said. If you were a normal person, then this age would be a bit late for you to enter the pro scene. But Miss Tang, you have a strong foundation. If you had formal training with experience from official matches, I'm convinced that you'd quickly grow into a genuine pro player. Then what about me right now? Tang Ru asked. Right now? Forgive me for my bluntness, but Miss Tang, you're still only relying on your reaction time and mechanics to fight. Even though you've gained a bit of knowledge, you still need a lot of real battles to turn that knowledge into habit. This needs formal pro-level training, Wang Jiaxi said. So it's like this, Tang Ru replied. That's why I suggest that if Miss Tang is interested, then the earlier you enter the pro scene the better. Playing the game is too much of a waste of your talent, Wang Jiaxi said. Okay, I'll consider it. Thank you, Tang Ru replied as calmly as ever. Wang Jiaxi didn't say anything more. The other side had once again ended the talks calmly. He went back and then watched all of the matches against Lord Grimm. He found that Yishu's condition had clearly deteriorated over time. Wang Jiaxi stopped the members that wanted to keep trying, ending that day's special practice. You must be tired, Wang Jiaxi expressed his sympathies to Yishu outside of the arena entrance. It wasn't tiring at all. Another 10 rounds, Yishu asked. Ha ha, I'll pass, Wang Jiaxi laughed. I'll properly arrange everything next time, so it won't be as tiring. You're too polite, Yishu said. I should be. Well then, see you next time, Wang Jiaxi said. See you later. What a difficult guy. After seeing them log out, Yishu expressed his regrets to Tang Ru. What do you mean? I wanted to win a few more materials, but once this guy saw that I was growing tired, he immediately stopped the training. He doesn't care about the materials, but he doesn't want to waste time on me when I'm growing tired, Yishu said. Really, this guy? He's a bit too smart, Tang Ru said. I really have grown old. I'm not like you. I get tired after 10 consecutive rounds, Yishu said. Oh, really? It looked to me like you didn't have any fighting spirit. You tidied those three-legged cats quite handily. If I were you, I'd also feel bored. It's not that you're tired, but rather that you're bored, right, Tang Ru said. You have a good point. But you should be the one feeling bored going against people that aren't your opponents, Yishu said. I just don't believe that someone who can stay focused playing for 12 hours straight will tire after only 10 rounds. That doesn't make sense, Tang Ru said. Yeah, fine, you have a point. But there's still one thing that I need to stress. Those guys aren't three-legged cats, they're last year's champions, Yishu said. Three-legged cat champions? Tang Ru said. That sounds a lot better, Yishu laughed. The two casually chatted, when a system message suddenly popped up. Yishu opened it and looked. The player 1 Injash wants to add you as a friend. Accept or decline? Chapter 147, Difficult Decision. Ever since he made a name for himself with the dungeon records, especially once the final Boneyard record hadn't been broken again, more and more players began adding Lord Grimm as their friend. He had friends from big guilds, small guilds, and privately too. The big guilds were naturally like Blue Brook Guild and Tyrannical Ambition, who wanted Yishu to be a long-term member of their guild. Small guilds talked about personal development and how he would have more chances at obtaining a promotion than in those big guilds. Noobs might believe them, but Yishu wouldn't. The private players wanted to build a personal relationship with him, in hopes that he would help them. He moved around among all of these different players. Some were declined, some were pushed away, some were ignored. Yishu conveniently looked at one Injash's info. He was a level 23 Ghostblade. Yishu's heart swayed and recalled that Assassination Moon from Team Tiny Herb. He accepted the friend request and then immediately received a message from the other side. Senior, I'm Chao Yifan, that Assassination Moon from Team Tiny Herb. So it really was him. Yishu thought, while replying, oh, so it's you. Yeah, I want to try out a Phantom Demon. Why are you leveling a new account? Yishu didn't understand. Each of the guilds had numerous other max-leveled accounts besides the main ones used for the matches. They usually had all of the classes and their different types. If the player wanted one, then he could easily get one. These accounts weren't armed with luxury equipment, so they didn't cost much. Chao Yifan was in an embarrassingly low position in Team Tiny Herb. As a stranger, how could Yishu have known that? However, among those in the alliance, each team knew which teams had which accounts. Yishu had even played in half of the season. Assassin. Yi Shu didn't recall of such a class ever coming out in the season for Tiny Herb. Due to this, he made a rough guess that this assassin wasn't in a high position among the players in the club. Of course, he could also be a new player in training and wasn't yet mature enough to come out on stage. But having fought with him before, Yi Shu could see that Chao Yifan's assassin really was quite ordinary. He couldn't really see much potential from him. It was only because he saw that this player's features was clearly suitable to a phantom demon that he suggested it. Apart from that, he didn't have any other motives. I was hoping that I could get some guidance from Senior, Chao Yifan said. Yi Shu stared blankly. He had been a part of the pro scene for so many years. What type of situation hadn't he experienced before? At this moment, even though he hadn't asked and even though Chao Yifan hadn't said anything, from how Chao Yifan said things, he could already guess the other side's situation. How long have you played Glory? Yi Shu asked. 1 year, Chao Yifan replied. Oh, it wasn't easy being a novice, Yi Shu sighed. Yi Shu had heard that there was a player called Gao Yingji, who was reputed to be Valkyria's successor. He knew that every time such a talent appeared, the talent would inadvertently kill off many of his comrades' light. For example, Chao Yifan wasn't someone who didn't have any talent. It was just that compared to the talent standing beside him, he appeared rather gray and dark. It was quite sad. Thinking of all this, Yi Shu understood that for a player on the edge like Chao Yifan, choosing a major decision such as changing classes was extremely difficult. To put it seriously, it could practically be considered a final gamble for the player's career. However, the person who had to make such a decision was just a young teenager. The choice that the kid chose was in between. He would continue practicing his assassin with the club, while secretly training his phantom demon to see if he really did have potential. If he continued to stay on the edge for a long time, then the kid would take a serious hit to his confidence. This could already be seen from his extremely careful and cautious style. It was only until yesterday did Yi Shu remind him to have more courage. To have already gotten to this step in a day could already be considered quite good. Seeing how his senior god simply answered with a "oh," Chao Yifan felt very nervous. Just as he was trying to figure out what God meant, he received a message. You should have some understanding of phantom demons, right? This class takes a while to complete. You have to get to at least level 40 before the phantom demon's strengths begin to appear. A phantom demon's true practice starts then, Yi Shu replied with a message. Yeah, I know, Chao Yifan answered. He was a pro player after all. There was no way he wouldn't know at least a little about every class. Any class's strengths, skills, their uses, etc. These were all basic knowledge for any pro player. Because of this, there isn't any way of practicing how to use a phantom demon in battle right now. I recommend that you find someone to level this account for you, while you do some research on the theories. For example, you could go look at the recordings for Team Void's matches and study them. Yi Shu sent a message. Team Void. Chao Yifan obviously knew of this team. Although they weren't top tier, they often made it into the playoffs. Team Void's captain Li Zan used the account Crying Devil, which was reputed as the #1 phantom demon in Glory. Team Void was the only team to use the phantom demon as their core. It could be considered as one of their unique features. Even though Li Zan's Crying Devil is the core of Team Void, it's never his other teammates coordinating with his Crying Devil's phantom ghosts. Watch how Li Zan deciphers the battles and then uses phantom ghosts to create the win for his team, Yi Shu said. Oh, understood. Give the account card to someone else to level for you. Once you reach my level, you can come with me and my party to get a feel for it, Yi Shu said. Thank you. Thank you, Senior. Chao Yifan was extremely happy. When Yi Shu told him to study recordings, he had felt somewhat at a loss. But now that he knew that there was still a chance for God to coach him, he immediately turned indescribably happy. Chao Yifan began doing what Yi Shu had suggested at once and gathered all sorts of recordings to study and learn from. He also went out to go look for someone to level his account. He signed up for the option that would level his character the fastest and then waited for it to catch up to Lord Grimm's level. On Yi Shu's side, while Chao Yifan went offline, he on the other hand was still chatting with some other players. These players were 7 fields in his group. At this moment, they had just made a difficult decision. Ever since they had witnessed Brother Expert's strength, they had always known that there was no way their poor guild and their puny resources had a place for a god like Brother Expert. But unfortunately, the rest of the members of the guild didn't think like that. After seeing Seven Fields and his group go up on TV and break a record with Lord Grimm, they were convinced that the relationship between Lord Grimm and them wasn't shallow. They were always nagging for Seven Fields and his group to pull him in. Seven Fields and the others used an excuse to evade the subject again and again, yet their guild's members kept on nagging, especially their guild leader, who was very unsatisfied with how they kept evading them. Those guild members could be ignored, but a portion of the guild's members, such as their guild leader, were their old friends who came together from the old server. Seven Fields and the others won glory from being together with Brother Expert, but the other old friends were still the same as before, struggling under the big guild's feet. That was why Seven Fields and the others all felt a bit embarrassed. But to invite Brother Expert to join their guild? No matter how one thought about it, that could only be a joke. Seven Fields and the other truly weren't able to say that, however they truly couldn't stand their friends and their guild constantly nagging at them. Finally, they made the difficult decision to recommend their guild leader friend to Brother Expert and let him talk with Brother Expert directly. At this moment, Seven Fields and Yi Shu were discussing about this, asking to bring a guild friend over to play together. How could Yi Shu have any opinion about this? In the leveling area, Yi Shu met with Seven Fields' guild leader friend. Hi, I'm Maple Tree, Full Moon Guild's guild leader, Seven Fields' friend. The 10th server guild leader Maple Tree proudly introduced himself. Seven Fields and the others escaped far away with their cheeks streaming with tears. Full Moon Guild's guild leader? What status was that? Seven Fields and the others might have once thought differently, but after witnessing Brother Expert fight, their view of the world grew boundless. The three great guilds became like floating clouds in their eyes, and those medium and small guilds became clouds that couldn't even float. And now, their own guild leader had just presented his status proudly, putting his status, which others thought of as very shameful, as extremely honorable, making him look even more shameful. Oh, hello. So you're all friends, huh? Yi Shu casually greeted him. It wasn't midnight yet, so Seven Fields and Sleeping Moon were there, as well as Drifting Water and Sunset Clouds. These two were normal players. They would only play every day after dinner, and as a result, the gaps between their levels gradually widened. They hadn't had the chance to create a dungeon record with Brother Expert either, so they were quite lonely. Yeah, we've known each other since way back. When I think about our time in the heavenly domain, Maple Tree chattered about their guild's magnificent history. After setting up his Full Moon Guild's great image with Yi Shu, Maple Tree changed the topic of the discussion. Now that I think about it, with your strength, why haven't you joined a guild yet? Oh, guilds. I don't want to join one, Yi Shu said. Is it because you haven't found a suitable one yet? Actually, you might as well just join our Full Moon Guild. Our Full Moon Guild has quite a long history and glory, and one of the oldest guilds out there. Although we can't compare with a few guilds, but I'm sure you understand that those big guilds all have pro clubs supporting him, so our guild made up of normal players have no way of comparing with them. But apart from these guilds with pros behind them, our Full Moon Guild is very famous. Maple Tree said. He's trying to pull him in. He really is trying to pull in Brother Expert, Seven Fields said to the others with his face covered in tears. I was wrong. I should pulled him along at midnight so we could dungeon together and have him witness Brother Expert's strength. If that had been done, I'm sure he'd be able to recognize the difference between heaven and earth. That, are you sure? Sunset Clouds said. In my opinion, Maple Tree's biggest feature is that he doesn't know the difference between heaven and earth, Drifting Water said. That's why having him see Brother Expert's strength would only make him want to pull him in even more. Correct. He grew up reading fairy tales. A poor boy chasing a beautiful princess and whatnot aren't things that'll stop him. I know. That's why I kept evading him. But those other guild members are just too annoying. I had no choice but to hope that Brother Expert wouldn't mind, Seven Fields said. Chapter 148, 4 Scarlet Moon Parts. Seven Fields and the others didn't have it easy either. This situation was like if you knew a beautiful girl, but had a vulgar, wolf-like friend that wouldn't stop bothering you to introduce him. No matter what you did, you couldn't block him or dissuade him, and in the end, your only option was to ask the beautiful girl if you could bring your friend along. It obviously wouldn't be good to just let him go and do whatever he wanted, but Seven Fields and the others weren't worried about this. The beautiful girl in front of them definitely wouldn't be bullied around by the wolf. They were only worried that after the beautiful girl beat the wolf to death, they would also get beaten down. After all, the person they were talking about wasn't a beautiful little girl, but rather Brother Expert, a person who had already shocked the world by the time he reached level 30. They silently listened as Maple Tree tried to persuade him with all his might. Seven Fields and others were half angry and half laughing. In their view, Maple Tree's strategy was at the level of a kidnapper waving a goldfish at a small child in order to abduct the child. Except this child was Brother Expert. It was like trying to kill a strong bull with a cheap knife. How could you not laugh at that? Even worse, this guy was grinning from ear to ear, not aware of how stupid he looked. Seven Fields and the others really wished they could see what Brother Expert's expression was. Hopefully he hadn't already smashed his computer to bits yet. Maple Tree talked and talked about in-game life, economy, and even how wealthy the big guilds were. The way Maple Tree explained all of the little details was as if he was a matchless professional. At this moment, after listening to him for a long time, Yishu finally replied very calmly, "If you're looking for me to set a dungeon record, then there's a fee." Long live Brother Expert. Seven Fields and the others nearly threw their headphones when they heard this. They discovered that there was no need to worry for Brother Expert. That goldfish scheme wasn't anything in front of Brother Expert. "Oh, a fee. That's easy. How much money?" Maple Tree said. "I don't want money. I want materials, uncommon materials or other things I need," Yishu laughed. "Oh, so it's like that. What do you want?" Maple Tree asked. "That depends on what dungeon record you want set," Yishu said. "Desolate Land," Maple Tree said. He himself was level 30 and could be considered at the top among the player population. He obviously couldn't compare to those big guilds whose elite teams were being leveled 24/7. Normal players didn't have that sort of advantage. Desolate Land. Yishu was still a bit hesitant. This was because he had already gotten all of the materials he needed from this dungeon from Team Tiny Herb. His myriad manifestation umbrella had already reached level 25. For the next stage, he needed all sorts of materials and equipment from level 30 to 40. No matter how fast Full Moon Guild's players leveled, they would only be a bit ahead of Yishu. They had just reached level 30 today, so they definitely wouldn't be able to pay up many level 30 to 40 items. How about 4 parts of the Scarlet Moon set? Yishu thought about it before giving out the reply. This shouldn't be a problem. Maple Tree was a bit hesitant too. Clearly, for guilds like theirs that were created only for fun, the guild leader didn't have as much power over the guild like those 3 great guilds. Most guild leaders didn't have any sort of leadership aura. On the contrary, they were more like public servants who made great efforts with little benefits. However, since they were in the new server with lots of new players, veterans like him still had some power in front of those little noobs. Unfortunately, it seemed like this small amount of power wasn't enough to let him casually take away someone's equipment and give it out for public use. The Scarlet Moon set was a level 30 battle mage set. In Glory, armor was split into head, shoulder, chest, waist, legs, shoes, these 6 parts. The Scarlet Moon set was one of the most common sets, which consisted of 6 parts of armor. Every 2 parts would give additional attributes. Along with equipment such as Lord Grimm's vampire cloak, there were also rings, necklaces, and badges, which were classified as accessories. In Glory, armor usually gave physical defense, while accessories gave magic defense. Unlike armor, accessories weren't categorized into types such as cloth, leather, heavy, plate. They could be worn by any class. Accessories were chosen depending on the player's needs. For level 30 players, they didn't need to be picky with accessories yet, but a full class set of equipment could improve their strengths significantly. With the current state of Glory, players often said that at level 30, they would begin seeking class sets. Privileged players should switch every 5 levels, while those weren't should switch every 10 levels. Those who didn't pursue these goals were players who didn't know how to play or had been carried the entire way through. Yi Shu was unspecialized, so the value of sets was limited. This was because the additional stats from a set often increased levels of class skills. Since those skills were often level 20 and up skills, they weren't useful to Lord Grimm, so wearing sets wasn't worth it. The Scarlet Moon Battle Mage set he requested was obviously for Tang Ru. This girl was one of the main forces in the dungeon setting team, but her current set of equipment was quite sad to look at. Yi Shu and them were a friendly team when they dungeoned. No one fought over equipment. However, there was no way they could match the resources of an organized guild. It was actually quite difficult for them to gather a set of ideal equipment since they could only run a dungeon a limited amount of times each day. Now that they were level 30. If they didn't pursue class sets, then they would fall relatively far behind compared to the big guild's elite teams, which was quite unfavorable for dungeon setting. This type of difference couldn't be completely made up for with skill. These types of low-level dungeons also had a limited skill cap. And worse, if Lu Hao wouldn't let things go, who knew when he might suddenly annoy him again? 4 Scarlet Moon parts. Is there a problem? Yi Shu asked. Don't rush. It was clear that Maple Tree didn't have the sort of authority like the 3 Great Guilds guild leaders. The amount of resources he could allocate was limited, especially for equipment. They had probably all been rolled for in the dungeons and taken away. Give the equipment to the guild? In their sort of guild, such an option didn't exist. 7 Fields and the others were quite astonished on the other hand. They didn't care about how their guild leader was busy trying to get the equipment. They asked in complete disbelief, "Brother Expert, you're going to help our guild set a record?" "There's a fee. It's always been like that," Yi Shu said. 4 Scarlet Moon parts, 7 Fields and the others were all veterans, so they knew of their value. When Yi Shu had helped the 3 Great Guilds set a record, his demands were impossible for them. He had even asked for orange weapons. In comparison to those demands, 4 parts of the Scarlet Moon set were nothing. The Scarlet Moon set was actually only a set of blue equipment. "Haha, I wanted an orange weapon, but there's no way your guild could have that." "No," Yi Shu said. "We don't," 7 Fields said. "That's why a bit less is fine," Yi Shu said. "Why do you need 4 parts? Why not the entire set?" 7 Fields asked. "It looks to me like that's the guild you guys are in," Yi Shu said. "Brother Expert, you don't need to give us face. Really," 7 Fields was very sincere. "No way," Yi Shu laughed, "the record set in exchange for only 4 parts won't be too high." Shameless, Sleeping Moon blurted out. "It's only fair," Yi Shu said, "even if you guys gave me all 6 parts, the record still won't be much higher." "Why?" 7 Fields asked. "See, Soft Mist's weapon is still only level 25. Not just her, but Steamed Bun too. Without level 30 purple weapons in a class set, there's no way we can set the record at its limit," Yi Shu said. "Then what you're saying is that the record you're going to set will be broken eventually?" 7 Fields asked. "For normal players, the current record is already their limit. When we break this record, there shouldn't be anyone who can beat it," Yi Shu said. "Shouldn't? Unless some bored players come," Yi Shu said. "What type of players?" 7 Fields and the others were becoming more and more confused. "Experts," Yi Shu continued to make them confused. "Experts? How could an expert setting a record be bored?" Maple Tree was speaking well and speaking badly to players in the guild. He was asking this and then urging that and explaining the importance of their guild's development, future, and goals, until finally, he gathered together 4 parts of the Scarlet Moon set. Of course, these 4 parts were from 4 different players. And those 4 players actually didn't have the entire set, so losing one wasn't too heartbreaking. "I'm going to get the equipment. Let's meet again at 12, Maple Tree said as he ran off. "From the looks of it, he's planning on going with them," 7 Fields said. Clearly, Sunset Clouds nodded his head. "Well, he is the guild leader. Let him go," Drifting Water said. "How many spots will there be?" Sleeping Moon asked. "Usually 1, 7 Fields said while asking Yi Shu, "Brother Expert, how many open spots do you have on your team?" "Probably 1. Who's going to be coming from your guild?" Yi Shu asked. "Our guild leader most likely," 7 Fields said. "Oh, that should be fine," Yi Shu nodded his head. What wouldn't be fine? Drifting Water asked. Yi Shu looked at his class. Non-DPS classes wouldn't be too convenient. Tears began pouring out from Drifting Water. He was a knight, an MT, main tank, so he obviously wasn't considered a DPS class, which probably meant that he would never be able to go up on TV with Brother Expert's record-setting team. Our condolences. The others all gave their sympathies. Maple Tree went and finally came back with the Scarlet Moon parts. Sunset Clouds and Drifting Water took their leave first. They were clearly quite busy people. They didn't play the game for very long every day and probably weren't able to completely use up all of their dungeon entries each day. Steamed Bun. Steamed Bun, Yi Shu began calling for his troops. Steamed Bun is here. Tonight we'll be setting a dungeon record, Yi Shu said. TV. I like it. I'll be coming, Steamed Bun Invasion typed happily. Near midnight, without needing Yi Shu to call over, Su Mucheng came online on time. At the same time, the guild's leaders from all the big guilds came. The first ones to contact him were Blue River and Cold Knight, his two former customers. Their messages came at practically the same time. Brother, can you set the record for Desolate Land tonight? Long-term substitution will begin tonight? Brother, you're level 30 huh? Have you thought over long-term substitution? The messages didn't only come from those two. These days, Yi Shu was entangled with many of the big guilds. What level Lord Grimm was and how many dungeon entries he had left, they were sometimes even more clear on those than Yi Shu himself. Right now, Lord Grimm was level 30 and his dungeon entries had been refreshed. Everyone guessed that it was the day that the Desolate Lands record would be broken. Which guild would the record fall under? That was what everyone was fighting for. But winning one time wasn't what they wanted. Every big guild wanted a stable substitution team. If today, the record fell under their guild's name and then the next day, the record would be set by the same exact players under a different guild's name, then that wouldn't look good at all for them. Yi Shu wasn't in a rush with all of these messages. He slowly typed out a reply for every one of them. Tonight, I'll be helping Full Moon Guild set the dungeon record. Chapter 149, Bidding War. Full Moon Guild? At least half of the guild leaders had no knowledge of this guild's name. To them, the only guilds that they were familiar with were the guilds with clubs behind them. Those were the only guilds that they recognized as adversaries. Of course, there were some that had heard of this name before. But they definitely knew that this wasn't a guild with a club behind it. It was only a guild created by normal players and could be considered an ordinary guild. How could this type of guild be able to snatch Lord Grimm away from the encirclement of all of their big-named guilds? All of the guild leaders were in disbelief. They each asked around to find what type of trick Full Moon Guild had pulled off. But this turned out to be quite difficult. Guilds like Full Moon Guild clearly didn't have any spies planted in them from big guilds. They had simply never been an opponent for them. As a result, they didn't have any inside information and could only see if there was someone who knew a member of that guild. There actually were a few results that came out of asking around like this. After all, Full Moon Guild wasn't like them. When Maple Tree went to gather the parts for the Scarlet Moon set, he had shouted for it in the guild channel and used the strength of the masses to pressure 4 battle mages into giving away one of their Scarlet Moon parts. Everyone in the guild knew of this. There wasn't any need to hide it, so when a friend came to ask, they immediately gave a reply. Quickly, all of the guild leaders from the big guilds found about the price tag of 4 Scarlet Moon parts and they all violently coughed up blood. 4 Scarlet Moon parts. What type of fee was that? For these guilds, such a price was basically giving it to them for free. Most of the equipment dropped from level 30 dungeons were blue equipment sets. For something so trivial like 4 parts of the Scarlet Moon set, all they had to was open their mouth and they'd be able to obtain them. For the elite players from their big guilds, they could easily gather a full set of class-specific equipment for several teams. And with their guild's complete setup, if they needed a Scarlet Moon set, then the guild would by all means compensate for the provider's losses. As a result, they could easily get the 4 parts with just a few words. Not like Maple Tree, who was like a child asking for his grandpa, desperately trying to get the 4 parts. In short, this sort of condition was too easy for these guilds. How could they let Full Moon Guild get away with such a steal? The guild leaders were no longer calm. Many of them began sending Lord Grimm more enticing offers. Brother, how about a full Scarlet Moon set? A Scarlet Moon set and a level 30 Purple Bright Lance. 2 Scarlet Moon sets. One for you and another one for free. The offers were endless. In any case, they were all better than 4 parts of a Scarlet Moon set. Yi Shu didn't rush and patiently replied back to each of them. Among all of these, Blue River and Cold Night surprisingly hadn't come barking. These two had faced against Yi Shu more than once, so they had a certain level of understanding. 4 parts of a Scarlet Moon set weren't his bargaining chips for setting a dungeon record. Lord Grimm's starting prices had one feature. Even though they made you feel somewhat heartbroken, they wouldn't make you feel that it wasn't worth it. He clearly had an exceptional understanding of the game and could accurately measure his value. According to his style, 4 sets should be right. 4 parts. What did that mean? What was his goal? Blue River and Cold Night were both puzzling over this. And even though the big guilds operated quite similarly, who among them knew about one another well? Although they all had spies among them, the new server had just opened, so the core of the guild was still made up of the veterans from the old servers. The newly recruited low-leveled accounts couldn't be trusted too much. All of the guild leaders knew this. However, even with all of their precautions, there were still a few spies among their upper ranks. These sort of spies weren't new recruits from the new server. They were already spies in the old server and had signed up to pioneer in the new server. These types of people were already among the guild's elites in the new servers and were quite powerful. At this moment, only these deep spies would be able to tell their guild information on other guilds' movements. But there weren't many of these types of spies. On Blue River's side, he only had one spy with such authority. That spy was in Guild Samsara. Guild Samsara was the guild backed by Club Samsara. Team Samsara was a mighty team in the recent years. Their team's ace Joe Zakai was currently Glory's most popular player. Quite a few experts and fans expected a great future for Team Samsara. Thus, they were a strong opponent for them. They would not only be enemies in the alliance, but in the game too. Samsara has offered 4 class-specific sets. The spy messaged Blue River. With the way he does things, this should be the limit, Blue River said. It should be. But this time, he rejected it, the spy said. His reason? Blue River asked. He already agreed that he'd help Full Moon Guild, the spy said. TCH. He obviously knew that we would ask for him to set a dungeon record at level 30. How could he agree to Full Moon Guild's 4 Scarlet Moon parts? Blue River said. Do you think he has an ulterior motive? Definitely, Blue River said. I heard that Misty Castle and Blossom Valley have also offered the same price. How do you know? This information wasn't something that could be easily found. The only reason Blue River could find it was because of the spy he had in Samsara Guild. Our guild leader went to ask. Blue River felt relieved. Even though all of the big guilds competed against each other, they all knew each other. In this type of situation, where they were all unsure, they would sometimes turn their enemies into friends and exchange information. For example, that guy Plantago Seed frequently did this. But Team Tiny Herb and Team Blue Rain were absolutely mortal enemies, which naturally translated in-game too. Our guild leader is getting ready to offer a step higher, the spy suddenly said. Oh, how much? 5 class-specific sets. Blue River stared blankly, when he suddenly had an idea. Was this what he was trying to do? By deliberately reducing the price and having others offer higher, he would eventually win out. By provoking the guilds to fight over him, he immediately raised his status. For this type of situation, once the price got up, it'd be difficult to bring it down, unless he wasn't able to complete the employer's task. Samsara had taken the first step. Their information partners Blossom Valley and Misty Castle had probably followed closely too. However, these guild leaders weren't hostile spies. Their exchanges of information were probably only half-truths. Blue River guessed that there was no way of accurately knowing. He only knew that 5 class-specific sets had already exceeded Lord Grimm's previously set price. This move was brilliant. Blue River sighed and understood Lord Grimm's intentions. Blue River felt he could go over and negotiate with Lord Grimm. Just as he was about to send a message, his spy suddenly typed, D** Minnesota, rejected again. Rejected, still? What is he trying to do? For what purpose? What else does he want? Blue River was also startled. 5 class-specific sets, this was already enough to make them grind their teeth and cough up blood, but he still wasn't satisfied? Is really trying to make all of the big guilds go mad? He didn't ask for anything. He said the same thing, he already agreed to help Full Moon Guild. How could it be like that? What are you guys going to do next? Blue River asked. I don't know. The guild leader is furiously cursing right now. Of course, Samsara's 10th server guild leader Lonely Drink would be angry. 4 class-specific sets was very fair and the offer should have been accepted. But the way Lord Grimm had rejected it? Now that was fast. The reply came just a second after he sent his offer. Lonely Drink was convinced that guy had set up an automatic reply. How else could he reply so quickly? He randomly tested his theory. It looked like it wasn't an automatic reply. This guy really wasn't considering their offer. Lonely Drink wasn't stupid. After having his offer rejected, he was even faster than Blue River in thinking that this time, Lord Grimm really was trying to eat them up like a giant lion. This guy saw that all of the guilds were fighting over him right now. Lonely Drink didn't say a word for now and ran over to contact the other guild leaders. Those guys were also angry and cursing at Lord Grimm. They all looked like they wanted to kill someone. Lonely Drink obviously wasn't puzzled by this. These guys all acted as if they hated Lord Grimm. If it was someone else, then he might have actually believed that they wouldn't try to raise the bid again. But Lonely Drink knew that these guild leaders were the same as him, and had already decided to raise the bid once again. Because of this, he had hoped that the competitors would give up this theatrical act. HMPH, I'm not playing anymore. Lonely Drink finally threw it out, also in order to trick them, and then made a bid with 5 class-specific sets. This price increase was quite large. Seeing that the other guild leaders didn't have any intention of backing down, Lonely Drink also decided to raise it. He felt that his offer wasn't enough to be accepted by Lord Grimm, but he'd at least be able to make the other side feel his sincerity and then they could maybe seriously discuss it. Who would have thought that he'd be rejected instantly? This time Lonely Drink wasn't acting anymore and really was furious. If he wasn't even considering his offer, then did this guy want him to just directly gift him his guild? Lonely Drink wasn't happy. He was extremely unhappy. His first few rejections had made him feel somewhat puzzled, but the current him was no longer trying to obtain Lord Grimm's services, he was now trying to fight with Lord Grimm to see how deep he really was. As a result, Lonely Drink sent another message, 8 class-specific sets. What do you think? You should be happy now, right? Lonely Drink hadn't negotiated with anyone and was sent out as a gamble. You little punk, are you still trying to cheat me? Fine, I'll make an unimaginable offer that'll turn you stupid and make you speechless. This was the type of goal that the current Lonely Drink was going for. In the end, not even a second had passed, and his chat box had already flickered. It was the same result as before, as if his offer hadn't been considered at all. Lonely Drink almost didn't want to open it. He already felt a bad premonition. But, in the end, he looked at it. I've already agreed to help Full Moon Guild. F***CK. These words again. It was these exact words every single time. Lonely Drink now knew that this person hadn't set up an automatic reply. He was F***king copying and pasting. You. What the heck do you want? Lonely Drink almost felt his heart roar. I'm going to dungeon. Let's talk later, not even a second. A reply. Chapter 150, so nervous he became a noob. Lonely Drink wasn't the only victim. Although the other guilds may not have been as impulsive as him and directly offer 8 class-specific sets like he had, but for such a ridiculous offer to be rejected in less than a second? How could the other guild leaders even try to compete? The rejected guild leaders were no longer faking it now and were furiously cursing non-stop. Unlike Lonely Drink, they were cursing and complaining particularly about how black Lord Grimm's heart was. Even Lonely Drink's ridiculous offer had been rejected. After calming down, Lonely Drink began thinking like how Blue River had thought initially. What ulterior motives did this Lord Grimm have? Hey, do you think this guy has some ulterior motive this time? At this moment, a different two guild leaders began discussing, Cold Night and Blue River. These two players hadn't joined the Great Bidding War and had been quietly observing from the sides for any changes. Blue River had another perspective he could look at through the lens of the spy at Guild Samsara. Cold Night suddenly asked him this question. Blue River immediately guessed that tyrannical ambition wasn't as simple as he had thought. He was afraid that their guild also had some sort of trump card planted in another guild. Compared to the other guild leaders, these two were undoubtedly the most calm and rational among those in the bidding war. Their line of thoughts were the closest together, which was why Cold Night had ran over to discuss the situation with Blue River. I originally thought that he was going to use this as a way to raise his status, but with the way things have turned out, I don't think that's the case, Blue River said. I found information on Seven Fields and Sleeping Moon, who are often with him. They are both from this Full Moon Guild and they seem to be old acquaintances of his, Cold Night said. That might not be it. When everyone was still in Beginner Village, it was reported that this player called Sleeping Moon had been KSED by Lord Grimm. He then started spamming curses at Lord Grimm outside of the dungeon. Only after that did they get together, Blue River recalled. So there was something like this. Cold Night had begun paying attention to Lord Grimm slightly later than Blue River had, so he didn't know that such an event had happened. Yeah. But it doesn't matter what happened because they're now friends. Or perhaps it's just a one-time trick, Cold Night said. If it's like that, if it was because of their friendship, then Blue River would be extremely sad. He had once thought of using such a trick, but never went through with it. If such a trick had been successfully carried out by Full Moon Guild, a guild that they hadn't even put in their eyes, then he would feel extremely defeated. Either way, it looks like Desolate Land's record has fallen into Full Moon Guild's hands, Cold Night said. Yeah, Blue River didn't doubt Lord Grimm's strength one bit. Desolate Land. The level 28 to 30 dungeon was located in a deserted castle in the Desolate Land leveling area. A group of tyrannical bandits had made the castle their temporary home and as a result, became a dungeon. Starting from level 28, Yi Shu and the other had ran the dungeon several times. However, now that they had a new member Maple Tree joining their team, in order to assimilate this sharpshooter into their team, their strategy naturally had to be adjusted. With a normal player in their party, they might suddenly have a few more problems come up. But with a pro-god like Yi Shu, given a random class combination, he could easily come up with the most suitable strategy for it. How could such a simple issue like having a normal player be difficult for him? This run will only be for experimental purposes. We'll be adjusting our strategy based on Maple Tree, Yi Shu said to everyone after entering Desolate Land. Ha ha ha, relax. I've done this dungeon who knows how many times. I'm extremely familiar with it, Maple Tree boldly said. Oh really? Then we'll be starting now. I'll be leading, Yi Shu said. No problem. Lead away, Maple Tree said. Steamed Bun, 8 o'clock. Soft Mist, 10 o'clock. Cleansing Mist, pull the enemies ahead at the bend. Maple Tree go to the stone window on the right. Attack whatever I attack. Wait. What type of strategy is this? Maple Tree was dumbstruck. Steamed Bun Invasion had 2 bandits at 8 o'clock. Soft Mist had 2 thieves at 10 o'clock. And Cleansing Mist had 4 enemies ahead at the bend, who were gathered around playing cards. They were going to be pulled already? And for him, the stone window on the right, there were 2 bandits drinking over there. How could he get past them without alarming those 2 NPCs? If we don't use this strategy, then I don't think we'll be able to break the dungeon record, Yi Shu said. Just from equipment, their team couldn't compare to the current record holders, Blue Brook Guild. That 5-man team had class-specific sets plus level 30 purple weapons for each member. Their damage output would be much higher than their team's, which was how they were able to achieve the current 30-45 to 66 record. The team with the second fastest record also had equipment on another level than theirs. The difference between the second fastest and the fastest record was minuscule. This indeed was the record's limit in Desolate Land for normal players. If Yishu's team used the normal strategy, then they definitely wouldn't be able to break the record. If they were going to break it, then they had to fully utilize their team's advantage in skill. Just like for the record at Frost Forest, where Yishu had relied on his own superiority in skill, in order to carry out a one-wave rush strategy that wasn't possible for normal players and set a new record. If they followed how normal players cleared the dungeon, then there wouldn't be any difference between a god and a normal player, and the record obviously wouldn't be broken. You're going to break it like this? Are you looking to die? Maple Tree was very noisy. Haha, just do as I say. I'll explain things as we go. Everyone, forward, Yishu said. The other three had already rushed up to do their task, while Maple Tree was still staring at those two bandits drinking. How do I get to that stone window? Aerial fire, Yishu said. Those two bandits. They'll be gone soon, Yishu said, while his Lord Grim rushed up. His battle lance swept across, hitting two thieves at 1 o'clock. He then turned around and bang bang, two shots rang out, alarming those two drinking bandits. The bandits threw the alcohol bottles in their hands at Lord Grim and rushed at him. You're pulling 4 monsters at once, Maple Tree was astonished. When he brought his team in, there would be a total of 8 NPCs around them and they would only pull them out 2 by 2. But this team was different. 2 players each pulled 2 monsters. Lord Grim pulled 4 monsters, and not only that, but he wanted that launcher to pull 4 monsters too. Like this, they pulled 12 NPCs total. Maple Tree almost had the urge to leave the dungeon. Are you still not going up? If we were setting the record, then you've already wasted time, Yishu said, while his hands moved non-stop. Lord Grim handled the 4 elite monsters with ease. Maple Tree stupidly ran towards the window, but his camera was on Lord Grim the entire time, and nearly crashed into the window before stopping in time. Use aerial fire to go up. You've already wasted quite some time doing it that way. We started pulling 10 seconds ago, but you still haven't done anything yet, Yishu said. When you use aerial fire, try to hit the monsters too to save time, Yishu added. Okay. Maple Tree had entered the dungeon with matchless confidence, but in these few seconds, his confidence had already burned to ashes and flown away. Lord Grim, 1 player against 4 monsters. Steamed Bun Invasion and Soft Mist were also each fighting 2 monsters. Maple Tree looked and discovered that they weren't pulling monsters anymore, they were already beginning to kill them. It was just that while they were killing them, they were also bringing the monsters to their desired spots. Maple Tree didn't want to delay any longer. But just as he was about to jump onto that stone window, he suddenly felt a tinge of fear and his hands trembled. He hadn't calculated the distance well and he hadn't used enough strength, so when he jumped onto the wall, he directly latched onto the wall like a gecko and then slid down. Yishu saw this and he immediately coughed up blood. This Maple Tree was a guild leader. Even though his task didn't need high mechanics like Steamed Bun Invasion or Tangru, he should at least be an experienced player like Seven Fields and Sleeping Moon. Yet he couldn't even jump onto a window. He wasn't a noob, right? Yishu was even more shocked than Maple Tree. If he really was a noob, then that'd be really disastrous. It has to be known that their strategy mainly relied on skill. Even if Maple Tree was an experienced player, all he could be arranged to do was assist them. They couldn't afford to have him be a noob right now. Are you not able to jump up there? Yishu asked. No, I'm just a bit nervous, Maple Tree said. Why are you nervous? Your strategy's too crazy, Maple Tree said. Calm down. It gets crazier later, Yishu said. Okay. Hurry up and jump up there, Yishu said, while fixing his attention on this side. He had to properly see what Maple Tree's skill level was at. If he really was a noob, then he had to switch him out. Noobs weren't scary, but noobs that acted like they understood were the scariest. This time, Maple Tree judged the correct distance. He jumped and steadily landed. Yishu saw that the distance and power had been grasped well. So he really wasn't a noob. I said use aerial fire. Why are you still directly jumping up? But Yishu still had to correct his problem. Oh, I forgot. Do it again, Maple Tree said. Do it again and practice at the same time. Going up there with aerial fire isn't that easy. If you can't get up there, then keep trying, Yishu said. I can do it, Maple Tree hastily said. Aerial fire made the user fly backwards. The user had to control the gun in order to grasp the distance and height he flew. When to stop was completely reliant on experience. There wasn't enough time to turn around and look when flying. Maple Tree jumped down from the stone window and walked a certain distance away. Yishu saw his position and immediately asked, "How many shots are you planning on firing?" 6 shots, Maple Tree said. 6 shots and you'll hit your head. Hit my head? Too high, you won't be able to get into the window, Yishu said. Really? Then a bit farther away? Go a bit closer and 5 shots will be enough, Yishu said. Here, Maple Tree moved a bit. That's good. Okay, Maple Tree answered. He stood at the position, jumped up, and then turned around and fired at the ground. He shot 5 times in a row and sure enough, he was sent up to the window. At this moment, Su Mucheng had already brought those 4 monsters over. And soon, all 12 monsters were gathered together and the 4 quickly began attacking them. Maple Tree was still sitting at the window all lonely. He wasn't there to be some background decoration. Maple Tree, have you noticed that those 2 in the dead center are in your attack range? The orders for him to act had finally arrived.